Hi everyone, thank you very much for stopping by and returning to the old world. Today we're talking about magic and whether things are balanced when it comes to the old world. Now, with something like the various laws of magic, there's always a significant risk, I think, when it comes to that balance. Namely, we're talking about the creation of a spell collection which is simply better, and where players will generally try and take that particular collection of spells to the exclusion of all else. The question is, has that happened with Warhammer the Old World, or has Games Workshop got it about right? If we think back to the release of Warhammer the Old World, there was a lot of dissatisfaction when the news broke about how the magic phase was going to work. People liked the fact that there used to be a magic phase. Now spells are spread out across the various parts of the game. And people liked the tactical element of having to manage a pool of dice in order to get their spells off. Albeit, let's face it, in 8th edition, a lot of that was throwing as many dice as you could at the one most powerful spell you had access to. So maybe that did take away from the tactical element of it, where it wasn't you're throwing a couple of dice here, a couple of dice there. All players tended to do was throw a couple of weak spells, try and take out your opponent's dispel dice pool, and then throw the 6 dice at the big spell. But that is a bit of an aside. Where are we now with magic? Well, I think spells have been toned down a bit. They're more of a support role. For some spells, they do need to be cast in combination with each other in order to reach their full potential. To be honest, I'm okay with this. I didn't particularly like the Doom spells of 8th edition. It's probably come quite clear from this, even if you've not watched any of my other videos. And what do I mean by this? Well, if you think back to some of the spells that we saw floating around, we saw elves, that, for example, that were able to use their leadership as their strength characteristic. And we've got to remember that at the time, strength also affected your ability to get through opponent's armor. So if you were leadership 8, you became strength 8, and that would also give you a -5 to your opponent's armor save. So cutting straight through all but the heaviest of armoured knights. And because we're talking about elves and everything was initiative based for going first in combat, initiative elf generally meant you'd be going first and absolutely rinsing whatever you touched. Then you had spells like Infernal Gateway, which was a Zeech spell, and if the dice rolled in your favour, you could just pick up an enemy unit and take it off the board. It wasn't a case of whittling it down. Turn 1, you could take the biggest enemy unit on the table and it's gone. Overall, that was just far too powerful. So, this commentary aside, what do I think about Warhammer the Old World? Do I think the laws of magic are balanced? Overall, I kind of think they are. Now, the various laws of magic seem to have a mixture of stronger, weaker, and situational spells. And different armies playing in different directions do seem to be drawn to different laws of magic. And this, for me, leans into the answer that things must be reasonably balanced on that basis. For example, as an Empire player, I will generally take a lot of battle magic in my force. That seems to be pretty useful, but I don't see battle magic being spammed by other factions that have access to it. When, for example, was the last time that you saw an Orc Wizard using battle magic? They've got access to it, but they'll probably use War or Elementalism spells instead. Why? Because these work better with that Orc and Goblin playstyle. When building a force, with the exception of the Empire, where I'm going to take battle magic, I do find that choosing the law of magic for my spellcaster or spellcasters to be a genuine decision. I have to think about the playstyle of my armies. I need to think how many spells in a particular law are going to be useful. Is the signature spell of value? Of course, where I've got multiple spellcasters, are there a particular combination of spells that I want to try and target in order to get really a result that's bigger than the sum of its parts? Now, coming back to the question of balancing, the fact that the laws work together effectively, and you do want to, if you want access to multiple wizards, take a range of laws and not just generally just spam the same one over and over again, does lean into there being a tactical element to using spells. You've got to use the right combination at the right time whilst maximising your chances of getting those spells off. We've got to think that positioning of wizards comes into this now that we've got dispel ranges. So you want to put your wizard in the best possible position to be able to target units that it wants to cast spells on, whilst also being outside of the dispel range of enemy wizards, meaning that your opponent has that once a turn dice roll to dispel the effects of your witchcraft because of the army-wide dispel. Beyond that, it's a free reign, so your opponent has to think very carefully about what he wants to try and stop. So overall, I'm very much coming to the conclusion, I think the laws of magic, they're reasonably balanced. Yes, some are better than others, but you are seeing a lot of different laws being taken. And I do think there's a tactical element to using magic, and it's nothing like as straightforward as I think we feared it might be when we were first finding out about what the rules were going to be when the game got released. But that is simply what I think. Do you have any particular views on the strength of magic in Warhammer the Old World? Do you think it's balanced? Do you think a particular law of magic is far too strong or, of course, far too weak? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you've enjoyed this video, as always, do consider a like and subscribe. It's the best way of supporting the channel, and certainly with a subscription, it's the best way of being notified when a new video drops. All that remains for me to say is thank you very much for listening. I am Return to the Old World. Have a great day.